Okay. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining today's monthly best practice, SAM best practice webinar. My name is Nicolas Rousseau. I will be glad to spend 1 hour with you, and that will happen again and again over the months. And I will, of course, invite some people sometimes to talk about specific topics. I'm going to start sharing my screen, and I have a small PowerPoint presentation. And, let me start my screen. Just to introduce myself, I'm a senior product manager in the FlexNet Manager product management team. So I'm FNMS product manager, and I've been spending many years in services. I would say 20 years in software asset management in various companies, and a good 8 years with Flexera services, implementing as a licensing consultant, implementing solutions and sometimes advanced reports or automations. And the goal of these sessions that will happen once a month, the last Thursday of the month, is to share with the community. I know the community is quite active. I'm seeing a lot of posts, questions, answers, so that's very good. This approach and this type of webinar is also a way to deep dive in some topics which are sometimes a little bit complex. And I will share my screen just to start the presentation. Okay. So, and actually, I will maybe stop my camera. Okay, I will stop my. Actually, I will keep the camera. So, just to start with this, monthly best practice. So this is the first one, and expect to see more coming. Let's let's see together the agenda, which is quite simple. We have 1 hour together. The goal is to introduce what the SAM best practices calls are and what will be covered, what is the approach for these webinars. Then we will, start as any of these SAM best practices calls when there are news. We'll talk about what's new, and this week we have something strong, which is FNMS 2021 R1, which has been released. So I will go through the features of the product, and we will then have a deep dive on Oracle optimization reports that have been delivered in this release, and that will be also delivered in coming releases. A number of reports, 2 being delivered in 2021 R1, and the rest will come later, but you will have a preview of these reports in this session. So first, what are the SAM best practices calls? These are, monthly calls that will happen the last Thursday of the month. The time will be, we'll try to stick to 10 a.m. Central Time, which is a good time for US people, an acceptable time for European people, and maybe a more complicated time for India or Asia Pacific people. These sessions will be recorded. So if you can't attend the session, if you got an announcement that was interesting, don't hesitate to check and watch the recording. And, just to give you some pointers that will be shared in this screen, there will be, registration, and that's what you have already done actually today. You can register for the next one. Thanks for registering for this one. That's nice. The registration process will be communicated every month based on the new topics and the new sessions we'll have. There is a way to vote as well for the topics. So just opening the link, that links to a monkey survey, SurveyMonkey, sorry, which is containing a list of topics. Actually, this one is not in the list. There are some topics around Oracle, managing Oracle and optimization. What you could do as a participant to these best practices call, what you could do is vote for these topics. That's quite simple, low interest, high interest, and what I will get over the time is the list of votes as well as the weight of votes, which will help me prioritizing these topics. And just to give you a little bit of history, I've been delivering such monthly webinars in France with French-speaking customers for at least 2 years. So this is basically the list of topics that have been addressed. This list can be extended, can be modified. The goal is to be open and get your feedbacks and your needs. And one way of giving me a feedback, because actually this survey it does not include an open text topic. Maybe the easiest way you can contact me will be to send me an email. My email address is in this presentation. Okay, so moving forward in the various links that we have, the next sessions will be announced weeks or months after months, and a typical announcement that probably led you here. So I've tried to communicate over multiple channels, but the typical, announcements will be performed in the, community hub, which contains an event and webinars section. And you see this section, this session was announced. Expect to see 28th of probably August next month, another session that will be announced based on the topic that you will have prioritized. Okay, so I'm moving forward a little bit on the on why and how these monthly sessions will be done. The idea is to keep in touch with you. You will see it's maybe a little bit, unidirectional to start with, at least. There will be a question and answer section in the end, or you can post some questions in the chat. I'm not sure I will be able to address the questions. I will see how I manage that to stay within 1 hour. That would be challenging, but the typical pace will be news that will be shared for 10 or 15 minutes, and then a deep dive on the topic delivered by me or other people who are SAM experts. And the goal is really to show you some real life examples, use case, data, and to help and support you in your journey of managing software compliance and software license optimization. This is not an easy topic, and that's maybe why we have a job. So we can be happy that software asset management is not simple. But since the topic is not simple, since the tool that is addressing the needs, FlexNet Manager, is quite sophisticated and requires some deep understanding, there is a need and there is a value in having some knowledge sharing sessions. And you will see today, Oracle is definitely a topic that deserves one or several sessions. I will start with what we release, but expect more to come on Oracle, for instance, related to how we inventory Oracle and so on. So the sessions will be recorded, as I said. That would be hands-on. You will see a lot of demos. I will keep the demos, and each PowerPoint will be shared, containing also the screenshots and the links that will be shared during the video. And the sessions will be organized or presented by me or by other people that will be invited. So let's move on. And let's move on the first topic, which is, this week, FlexNet Manager 2021 R1 has been released. This is, so is it released today or will it be released tomorrow? But this is for this week, that's what I can tell you. The SaaS customer already have this version online in prod. And I'm going to quickly cover what we have in FNMS 2021 R1, knowing that the last on-prem version was 2020 R2. So SaaS customers got incremental additional features since November 2020, which was the last release date. They got additional features, but on-prem customers will get the batch of new features, which are common between cloud and on-prem. And I will go quickly through the features that I've tried to organize by vendor or by theme. So let's go and deep dive. So just to before I'm talking about each topic, one very important pointer that you may probably know, but which is quite useful, is the feature by release portal. So if you click on this link, and I will exit, the full view, you see here that we have a public, website, a public portal, which is containing, month by month, all the features that have been released. You have the same, for FNMS on-prem, that will contain less granular information. But what I've done today is basically, go through the latest updates since November 2021, which was the 2020 R2 release, on-prem and cloud. And I've captured each of these new additions. And that's how you will see in the, that's what you will see in the presentation. And just to, and I will not open each sublink, I will describe the features, but typically each of these features have a specific documentation, just like you could see in the global release by feature. You see this one, for instance, Oracle database inventory in Amazon RDS. This is a quite hot topic for people who are using Amazon cloud services, and particularly the Oracle database cloud service. You will get details on what was implemented and what is the, what the feature is. So I will come back to the presentation. And Oracle is a big focus that we have right now. You have the optimization reports. You will hear enough about them today. I will shift to the next one. We have released, it was actually for SaaS customers back in May, I think, the capability for collecting the Oracle RDS databases details. So typically, the beacon is able to connect to the RDS service, which is exposing the list of Oracle instances, and the Oracle inventory will be performed remotely on each of these services delivered Oracle instances. So that's an interesting one, because it's not exactly about having an agent on a machine, which we could do on Azure, for instance, if you have a SQL Server or Oracle database on an Azure virtual machine. The easy way is to install the agent. Here, that's more interesting. We are querying the service, and we are querying the instances, which has actually no full VM that we could inventory with an agent. So that's quite a big feature. And if you are using Oracle RDS, that's a good one to work on and to discover. We also got, quite a big event back in June, or actually it was mid-May, I think, the Oracle Fusion middleware data collection. So Flexera has been Oracle verified for collecting the Oracle Fusion middleware data. It's quite similar to what we have for Oracle database. It's a pure inventory certification or verification, which means that we have a set of queries and configuration file collection from the agent that are zipped and that are imported into the agent, which allow to recognize the Oracle Fusion middleware information. And that will also allow to include and to recognize, based on these new evidences, to recognize the editions, for instance, of the products. So typically, WebLogic and Web Center can now be recognized for their edition. So that's something that has been extended, and Oracle has also enhanced Oracle rules, which are including now, the point rules, which are including vCPU per sockets, or new things, new metrics, which are necessary to compute the Oracle cloud consumption. So moving forward, we have also focused on additional topics. Actually, I don't see the topic here, but bring your own license is what has been also added for both Microsoft and Oracle. Microsoft Hybrid Use, that's called, allows you to use the on-prem licenses on some cloud deployments. And the FlexNet licenses have embedded this logic that allow to cover cloud instances with on-prem or cloud SQL Server or Windows Server with on-prem licenses, which mean that you have sort of a double entitlement for a period. it's an 18 months period, but the license allows to do that. Moving forward, Microsoft, the client secret support for Office 365 connector. So there was a complaint by many customers that the beacon connection to the Microsoft Office 365 portal was using a token that has a limited life. And with this new approach, we have a way of connecting to the portal which is more stable and goes over the time. I will let you discover the details of each of the features. Each feature could deserve a full session. So I will just, go through the features and then you can deep dive thanks to the links. IBM on Kubernetes is quite a topic. This is a container technology that is evolving and growing. FNMS has been able to inventory, the agent has been able to inventory Docker's containers since October 2020. Or November, actually, and the collection of Kubernetes container has been added to the agent earlier this year, and the license consumption related to Kubernetes containers is now added into FNMS as a consumption report. So this is actually, we are reading the IBM license service consumption, which gives us the information on which container consumed how much. It reminds me a little bit of the mainframe MIPS consumption collected by SRC. That's IBM has the ability to share the consumptions from a local monitoring tool that they have, a local monitoring service that they have. Moving forward, the inventory of Kubernetes, I already mentioned. And then another topic which is quite important if you have interest in Java, the ability for the agent to collect Unix Java evidences has been added. So there is a complicated topic, and Java will definitely be a full session. You will see in the list. It's coming at least 2 or 3 times. Java actually has a rule that says, that you need to license down to the update number, 8.202. 202 is the update number, but also down to the build number, which is actually a nightmare because it means that we need to collect and to recognize, based on the build numbers, these instances of Java. And the Unix agent has been extended. So the current version of the agent, 2020 R1 or R2, 2021, R1, includes the capability on Unix to collect down to the build number and to also create file evidences, which is another big topic. If you have worked a little bit on that, managing the embedded instances of Java, which are related to the path where they are installed, so requires a file evidence. So even Unix, which was up to now managed as an installer evidence based on the Java-version command, Unix is now managed as a file evidence, and you will see future features that allow to manage automatically the embedded instances of Java. And having that managed as a file evidence was necessary. And finally, we have 2 or 3 more things. Recognition for Toad has been enhanced based on additional queries that the agent is commands that the agent is running. And finally, the purchase processing has been enhanced. As a consultant, I've often suffered from the unprocessed purchase missing some columns, for instance, because you want to process and create licenses from the context of a cost center, of an end date of a maintenance, for instance. That was not possible. So just be aware, all needed columns are now present in the unprocessed purchase stream, which is making the processing way simpler. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say about the last version and the last release version. I'm now moving forward on Oracle optimization reports, and I will give a little bit of a business context because Oracle is not a simple topic. So first, let's start with that. Oracle is useful. Oracle is necessary to many companies. Many worldwide companies are using Oracle database to run their SAP instances. So no question that Oracle is useful. Even if sometimes, the challenges with Oracle licensing can lead some customers to think about changing their strategy on the database side. But I would say I know no customer today where Oracle is not in the top 3 list of publishers. Second point that we can say, which is no secret, Oracle is expensive. But you could argue that Microsoft SQL Server Enterprise is expensive. But if I go to the official site of Oracle, I will escape the. Sorry, to find myself. The price list is public, so it's not a secret. It's not a secret that the price of Oracle database is high. The price is $47,000. This is the September 8 price list, but no secret. Oracle is quite transparent. And then, of course, some customers get discounts. That's a different story. But this is an expensive product that can lead to millions of dollars or euros of liability and contracts. So I'm just saying, common sense things so far. So next step, which is less famous and less understood sometimes, Oracle has complex rules. Complex rules about, the fact that a virtual machine, particularly on the VMware virtualizing architecture, a virtual machine can move across ESX servers. And they have invented something which is nice, which is called soft partitioning. It means that if a software is managing the hyperthreading, or the hypervisor is a software that can move the VMs even across hosts or across clusters or even across vCenters, which is now what vMotion allows to do in the latest version of vCenter. What they have declared and what they have chosen is you need to license each of the hosts where potentially the VM can move. The rule in a way makes sense. It's because, if you have a small host, a very big host, a VM being on a host in a minute could be on the next bigger host in the next minute. So a good way of simplifying things, and I would say of costing a lot to Oracle customers, is to make each of the hosts licensable as soon as one VM is installed with either Oracle database or any option. So if I open a post I've written on this topic, so that's a post that you can access in the Flexera blog. That's when good intentions, goodwill, and insincerity of the publishers leads to a licensing nightmare and financial waste. So you will read it explains how both Microsoft, Oracle, IBM, there is sort of a race that makes technology evolve, particularly on the virtualization side, on the hyper-threading and so on, and how publishers, with a good intention initially, reflected, that stronger machine needs to be licensed with a more expensive license, but it has led to extremely complicated rules. IBM being a nice example. I would say IBM is not as strong as Oracle, or is fairer to their customers. IBM, it's about 90-day peaks by region, by product. This is what they call PVU. Oracle has been a little bit simpler, which is actually a huge risk and cost for customers. What they've said is you need to apply sub-partitioning for VMware. You can apply hard partitioning for IBM, IBM hosts and helpers, which is a different way of counting, which is just taking into account the installed VM cores. And by this sub-partitioning rule, they have even made multiple sub-partitioning rules. So they started with the cluster level. It was, I'm not even sure when it was, maybe 2005. The vCenter 5 were able to move the VMs within the clusters in the vCenters. But then, the sub-partitioning has broadened to vCenter level with vCenter 6.0. And then, all vCenters with a 6.1 plus, actually 6.1 plus, that demands theoretically, as soon as one VM is somewhere in any of your data centers, maybe there is you could maybe scope by domain, maybe, but as soon as a VM is somewhere, you need to license all the vCenters, which is just millions and millions of liability and risk. And there are some very famous and currently active audits where there are some hard negotiations between Oracle and their customers. So that's to take an example, a 2-core VM, small VM with in a 500-core cluster, which exists. I've seen 1,000 core clusters, could trigger the cost of 2.8 million if, by mistake, advanced compression was activated on the VM by let's say a DBA for a test. And to be honest, I've seen that in reality in a big bank. It was suddenly, FNMS consumption was jumping by millions because of a test. So it's easy to say it's a complex world. Hopefully you get the context, the business context, and FNMS 2021 R1, and also the next versions for SaaS customers, which are released in September, November. We have one release a month. We'll bring the additional reports I'm going to demo. FlexNet Manager was able up to now to count well, applying the painful sub-partitioning calculation, finding the factor, which is different from the various types of processors. Flexera was counting correctly. FNMS was counting correctly. FNMS is applying the cluster level sub-partitioning, which is not the official rule by Oracle, but that is actually what we are seeing the most commonly applied as a rule. And that's the point I forgot. There are some variations. I've seen customers, applying the vCenter level license sub-partitioning, which honestly is not a good negotiation unless you have a very good control over your Oracle estate. I've seen customers, applying the cluster level sub-partitioning, which is way better. And I've seen customers, either by negotiation or by commitments or proof that affinity was correctly set between virtual machines and hosts. I've seen customers who were applying rules which are not the cluster level sub-partitioning. So this is all gray. There are some nasty rules. There are some gray negotiations. And FNMS, that was counting correctly on the cluster level side, is now helping you with this set of reports to understand what are the risks, what are the optimization possibilities. And there is a big focus, you will get that, on the VMware ESX servers or VMware clusters and vCenters. So you will see, we'll go through the description first. And then later in the presentation, there are some screenshots which explain what I'm seeing now. And I will go through a demo on the demo system, which has a limited number of Oracle virtual machines and instances, but good enough to show you the details of these reports. Let's start with an easy one, an important one and shiny one, I would say, which is giving you the high-level optimization view focused on clusters and hosts. And it's not about, the details of the details on how much you consume, where you consume, why you consume. It's about you are consuming Oracle database or options. This is focused on the Oracle processor licenses. And the report will catch, for each of the hosts, unclustered hosts, or for each of the clusters, the basic metrics, which are, what is, actually, I could go one by one, it would be more easier. What is, the cluster, first, cluster or host, how many, cores the cluster has, which is something that you could find cluster or host. It may depend on what each row will represent the lowest part of the infrastructure which is hosting an Oracle VM. So the cluster here has 336 cores. Okay, that's a quite big one. It gives you the basics of what are the VMs which are consuming. You see here the details, which VM has how many cores, with which instance. So you get quite a quantity of detail, but in a single row to make the view simplified. And the report is very simply comparing the consuming VM cores, which is nothing more than the sum of cores of the VMs on the host which are installed with the product. So here we are seeing Oracle Advanced Compression. This sum of cores is compared to the total consumed cores, which is actually so there is a factor of 0.5, not to confuse you, but in the end, the report is able to compute what is the value consumed for the cluster and host, 168 multiplied by 5,000, and it will compare that to the value that would be consumed if you were applying basically hard partitioning, or if these VMs were in a very small cluster, because this is all the point, you are wasting for 32 real cores, you are paying for 336 cores. So the amount here is an optimization value that you could get by just moving the VMs. And I would say, moving the VMs is not so easy. That's another report, which is called target architecture. But at least here you get the bad boys. You get, if you saw this report by optimization value decreasing, I've run it on some big customers databases, and the report shows easily a 4 million, 10 million waste value. So sorting by decreasing value would be good. Of course, the ULA licenses are not so much under the radar. However, one day you will exit the ULA, and it will be good to think about, if you have negotiated to pay the maintenance 2 or 3 years after. So always good to wonder, if you're really optimizing your architecture, even in the ULA. And the report will show, basically, this is a cluster, this is the license consumed, these are the consuming instances, and this is your waste you should move. Okay, so I hope this makes sense. I will run the report, on the web UI, but actually showing the report with this type of presentation makes it even simpler. One thing that we have done, which is, if you have a default price, so this is all about money. What we need to understand is, is it a big amount? So if in your database, you managed in the Oracle Advanced Compression the cost of the license by 2 ways, either by setting an overridden cost on the license, that's a way of doing that, or by attaching a cost to your last Oracle software purchase, software type purchase. FNMS, just like in the global dashboard, will catch this cost and will multiply. And the report actually has another column. I took this column away because there were too many columns for the screenshot. But there is another column which is entitlement cost. And if we don't have an entitlement cost, we will apply a default cost of 5,000, which is it good or bad? If we think about pounds, euros, or dollars, or Canadian dollars, or US dollars, this is almost okay, or Australian, this is almost okay. If we think about other, yen, for instance, or rupees, it's absolutely not valid. So we advise you to add, the cost to the license. It will make the report more relevant, of course. So this is the report is multi-currency, so it will show the cost in your default currency value, and even the title actually catches the currency from the default currency in your database. So that said, this is the high-level view. This is where do you lose money? What should you move? One VM losing 390K. This is a quick, easy win. Create a smaller cluster and put this VM in this cluster. So that's the first report. And let's go to the next one, which is, so this one is released. The next one, which is called about license consumption details, has the same approach, but it is drilling down on the details. For instance, if I go back to my previous one, I am losing, on this ESX RU 2041 CL300. This is a nice name for a cluster. I'm losing, 760K. The next report is explaining you why you are losing this model. Here you get an ID, which is, total number of cores, total number of actually installed cores, even the list of VMs. But the next report, which is called Oracle Consumption Details, also does, like the first one, a cluster level sub-partitioning. This is not yet about vCenters and all vCenters. And will show the full details in a tree view. So knowing that reports don't support tree views, so we have indented display that will probably be enhanced in the next versions. We have an indented display which shows the vCenter, the cluster, the host, the VM, and we give all the details that we can on. It's a little bit like the license consumption tab, but you will see it brings way more details on what is the consuming application. If you have 5 applications on a given VM which are installed, Oracle 19C, Oracle 18C, for instance, you will see the details. You will see the list of instances with the number of users. And there are some additional things that you have never seen in FNMS, which are the license cost for the given host, which is carrying the consumption. You will see also a chargeback value, which is a discussion I had a lot as a consultant with customers. This is basically a cluster level consumption, which is rolled down to the VMs. This is a classical use case where you have shared clusters hosting ESX servers, also shared by IT, and you have VMs which are used by the entities or your corporate units or cost centers. And knowing that the host is consuming 16 multiplied by 0.5 is consuming 8 cores, processor licenses is nice, but knowing how you could split the cost that you are paying for the cluster down to the VMs is an even more interesting topic. And that's one part of this report. It is containing a chargeback value, and it's also providing, the optimization value, which is host per host, doing the same map calculation, which is how many VM installed cores do I have, what is the number of license cores, what could I save given the good or bad setup that I have. One thing I didn't mention, the report can show negative optimizations, which means that if you are using perfectly the host capping, which even exists with ESX servers, if you have a small clusters with, 20 cores, if you have VMs installed with Oracle database, if the total cores of these VMs, because you can have core sharing within a host or within a cluster, if the sum of cores is below the number of 20 cores of the host, you will pay for the 20 cores. So let's imagine you loaded your cluster with 30 cores of VMs, making sure that there is no performance issue. You will definitely take advantage of the host capping rule, and the report will show minus 500K optimization, which means good, you have already optimized. Okay, I'm moving forward on the next report, which is showing a hierarchy. So this is called device hierarchy. This is a type of report we already performed in the past. And this report shows what are the vCenters, something that we don't show a lot in FNMS, what are the clusters, and for each row, you have the full story, which is, the host, for instance, carries some consumptions. You get the factor, which is not shown a lot also with FNMS. The number of cores, which is consuming cores. The not consumed cores, 20 cores are here. 8 cores are really used. Oh, that's a pity. We wanted to emphasize the wasted cores, I would say, because they will be licensed. And you get, this view, which is the value consumed by the host, given the price per unit, which is here, actually the cost on the license. We don't have a default price on this one, so make sure that your licenses have a cost associated on the purchase or on the overridden cost. And we get the story one by one, on the optimization value, which is either positive or sometimes, negative if you have, let's say, a lot of VMs on a given host at a given time, which are installed, and you have more consuming VM cores than host cores. In the end, what matters is rolling up these counts at the cluster level, if we use the cluster level sub-partitioning, but that's really, what the report does. And the report, even gives you some recommendations. FNMS starts talking to you. Some of you maybe use FNMS for SAP, which is all about computing recommendations, suggesting enhancements of the architecture, or moving down some users from license type professional to limited professional, for instance. Here we do the same. There is a list of metrics which are monitored by the report, and that will give, for instance, more than 40K, 50K, so it's a priority 2, but more than 50K waste will show a priority 1 optimization recommendation, which is, be careful, you really have an issue. This, just for one host within the cluster, you are wasting more than 50K. Okay, and one thing I did not show a lot yet is the chargeback. I will show you in the documentation, because these reports are very detailed, are documented in very high details. But one thing that we can think, I can't resist to the joy of showing you another report. FNMS, if I go to back in November this year, FNMS included a new report, which is called, the licenses consumed and purchased by location. That's a report I created a long time ago for on-prem customers, and that's one thing which is sort of a high-level chargeback value that you can get across licenses. And here, you see, for instance, this is very focused on Oracle. Here you can see that for each row, you will know which, I've taken the location slice, which location has purchased. So I didn't import a lot of purchase, but you could import purchase linked to India, to United States, or or Australia. And the report is actually doing a sub-enterprise calculation for the license consumption, like in the license group assignment tab. But the report is doing that across licenses, which is way simpler than going one by one on the licenses. And it gives a full of details. Again, this is very well documented. I let you, check the report. Each of the columns is explained in details. So this report, you may not have seen it already if you're on SaaS. I know big SaaS customers who didn't know this one. This report will give, enterprise level, with the ability to pivot the data, thanks to this level 1, level 2, level 3 columns. And it also gives, what are the covered installations. That's also a very complicated thing. If you know that France is consuming for 100 Oracle Database Enterprise licenses, what are the installations and what is the split of these installations which are explaining my consumption on a license which is covering, version 19C down to eventually very old versions. So here you get, the details of the details, and that was a little, parenthesis to introduce what the new reports are bringing, which is a detailed level chargeback, because the use case I was showing is actually not addressing, a complex case of a shared host with, virtual machines which are linked to the entities, while the host is sort of shared. So here you get, on the right side, you have all the columns of the VMs, cost center, location, corporate unit. You will get, the ability to recharge each installed VM for its consumption based on this calculation, which is not completely simple, but very well documented again. And yes, you have the consuming instances and installations, which are, I didn't have enough place on the right, so these are also covered by the report. Okay, I'm moving forward in the next 3 reports, which will be released in September. And then I will show them, but actually, the screenshot is maybe more helpful. Next report is about, vCenter. I discussed about this self-partitioning, which is a pain. Some customers are asking us to manage and have the licenses, providing the option to compute either with the, let's say, cluster level self-partitioning or even vCenter or all vCenters. If they want to be frightened, they could do that. This is not something, unfortunately, that we have done in the product. I would say if FNMS processor license were switching to vCenter, I guess we would have more complaints that customers actually use, a cluster level. So these reports, the 2 reports we're going to see now, are addressing this need, not in a license, but in the report. But you will see it's giving, again, the big picture and the details, and hopefully it will help you assessing your risk. Let's imagine you are using in your accounts a cluster level sub-partitioning, and you know that Oracle is okay, but you never know. Having these reports will allow you to assess your risk, and you will see financial risk as well. Okay, and so you will see these reports allow to assess, the risk and the financial risk. Okay, so let's move on, and maybe I will start with the first report, which is called Oracle License Consumption Summary at all levels. And this report, you will see, is at license level. So you will see 1 row per license. You see my demo database is not very rich, 7 licenses for Oracle processor. It is focused on the Oracle processor licenses, which are the only ones impacted by this partitioning, sub-partitioning rule. And you will see that these are the real costs. So again, think about putting costs. Is it the real cost of your contract? I know customers who are reluctant doing that. Is it the cost of the price list that anybody can know, and that would be nice to show a risk because it's probably bigger than the cost you're paying? I would engage you to use the overridden costs and use this official price list cost. Once you have this cost applied, and there are some dummy costs here, we don't pay at Oracle, at Flexera, we don't pay our Oracle Database Enterprise licenses for 7K, don't worry. So once you have the costs, you have this, report that shows first the balance, how many did you purchase, how many did you consume at cluster level. And then you have the what if analysis. So this is the overall value, but you see if you were in the very unlikely case, you have a host level hard partitioning for the ESX servers. If you were, consuming just counting the ESX servers, you would consume way less licenses. Actually, the demo makes that we don't have such a difference because most of the hosts are installed in this demo instance. And then, you have this third column, which is comparing, for instance, on Oracle Database Enterprise, you see here, 109 consumption. This is what the license would show. And you see here, 262 processor consumptions, which is what the license would compute if you were using a vCenter level sub-partitioning. I will show you the detailed report, which is explaining the data. And again, if you were crazy enough to have the all vCenter level consumption rule, you would consume, 324. So why don't we have always the same numbers here? It's because, there are some physical computers installed sometimes, only physical computers. So that's where, here we are really showing all the consumptions across computers or fast virtual machines considered as a physical computer, and, hosts and virtual machines and clustered virtual machines. So here, I won't spend too much time, but the report will give you the financial costs comparing the vCenter versus cluster. I've run this one with a big customer. It was showing 58 million euro. So this is your additional cost if procurement was good enough to accept the cluster level or the vCenter level calculation, which I've seen one time with one customer, but they wanted to assess, what was the impact. This is a big impact. And you have this all vCenter rule that, of course, will show incredible amounts. And the saving, if you were using, hard partitioning on the hosts, this is how much you would save on this license. So this is the overall, the summary report that gives you the helicopter view on your risks eventually. If you say, yeah, I'm counting in cluster, but what if Microsoft or Oracle was coming and assessing and auditing me, counting at vCenter level because I'm not using Affinity or I'm having challenges to prove it. You get an immediate evaluation, assessment of the cost risk, knowing that the license is a good 3 times more expensive. So here, just for this small demo instance, we would have, let's say, a 4 million additional cost. Okay, so moving forward in the reports, hopefully I'm not too fast, not too slow. The next report is about the all level, the consumption details for the what if partitioning levels, and we are still working on the titles on these ones because they are still beta. But in the end, the report will show the details of the details, like in the consumption tab of a license. It's not focused on the optimization, on the chargeback. We are not trying to do, the reality of your consumption, just like the other reports do that on the cluster levels of partitioning. What we're doing here is, what if you were paying your, licenses based on cluster level, vCenter or all vCenters? And you will see for each ESX server, there are more columns, which make the report a little bit harder to read. But I've removed many columns which were not relevant because we are just focused on this what if. So if we go on this report, which is the Oracle license consumption details at partitioning levels, you see that you have, a custom consume point at cluster level, which is basically what you see in the consume column of the out-of-the-box cluster level sub-partitioning. So everything will appear. A computer, an offline virtual machine, a clustered virtual machine, everything will be here. You get the same hierarchy, which I will show in the report, which can be reinforced by sorting the report. There is a column which is called path that allows to reestablish this hierarchy. And you see here, we have, this vCenter specific consumption or all vCenter specific. So typically, here, the data is quite hard to analyze, but here you have 14 consumption because this computer is in this cluster. This cluster is in a vCenter, which has a virtual machine installed. We see it here. This virtual machine, we get all the details. What is the Oracle instance? What is the version and so on. And because you have in the same vCenter another installed cluster, but this cluster is not installed. Otherwise, you would see the consumption at cluster level. Here, the report is catching, this vCenter specific consumption. And the additional column, which is consume point at all vCenter specific, typically, because this one is consuming, because of the vCenter level, these ones are consuming because they are in a vCenter where there was not even one installation of Oracle Database Enterprise. So these ones, come because in their vCenter, very small vCenter, you see it, vCenter, vCenter. This small vCenter is actually not installed with Oracle Database, so it should not consume. It will not consume at cluster level, of course. It will not consume at vCenter level. There is no VM installed here, but it will consume if you consider the all vCenters partitioning rule. And in the end, this report is just a roll-up of this report. So this report is calculating the details, showing the details, and this one is providing, more high-level summarized and summed amounts and counts. Okay, let's move on to the last report. The Oracle Option Virtualization Target Architecture. The first report I showed was showing you, oh, this VM has 2 cores. It is in a 500 cluster core. You are wasting 2.8 million euro on advanced compression. That was the use case I described a little bit earlier. But it's actually more complicated than that, because if you have a VM, or at least on the option side, if you have a VM virtual machine installed with 3 options, let's say tuning pack, diagnostic pack, which often come together, and let's say advanced compression, you can. There is an even better way of optimizing your architecture, which is putting together the VMs which have consistent installed and used options. And that's the last report, and I will jump on FlexNet to show the consumption. This one, actually, you will see the recommended cluster as an ugly name, which is a list of options. This VM, there is 1 row per VM. You see, small demo database, just 10 are installed. And actually, I'm going to show you the report. I will start with this one, for instance. But the goal here is to say, okay, you have a number of VMs which are installed with 1, 2, 3, 5 options together. Let's regroup these VMs together, and let's recommend a cluster that will have the VM name as a name. The list of options name as a name, and we will show the options, the instances which are consistent with the, let's say, 4 options which are here. We will compare, 6 options. We will see if even within the VM, your instances are consistent. This one is a high mark, I would say, but that's a pity because this one has only 4 of the 6 options which are actually installed on the VM. So that's a little bit complex, but the goal is it's a cascaded, optimization architecture report. It gives you, which VMs should be put together in specialized clusters. Clusters would be specialized on the installed and used options. The number of cores, the report is showing, the total number of cores for the clusters installed with these options, and is comparing to the number of cores that you would have for the smaller cluster, which is just the sum of cores of the VMs with consistent options. And so there is, again, a comment which explains the row per row the option. And there is an additional feature, because when I did that the first time for a big financial company, I think they are in the call, the immediate reaction was, oh, that's great, Nicholas, but how do I do if my data centers are in different domains? I can't move the VMs across domains. And here we have the way of regrouping the recommended clusters by domains. And I'm going to now move to FNMS, and I'm just a little bit late. So if I open this report, so you will see the reports in this compliance, and you see the optimization is growing. And you see here, this Oracle Options Virtualization Target Architecture. If I run the report, let's run it across locations. I'm not trying to regroup my VMs by location. And here, if you see, I can regroup, let's say, by recommended cluster. And you see, again, my poor demo data does not allow incredible things, but here we have 2 VMs, which are together installed with advanced compression only on these instances. And one VM is in Itasca, another VM has no location. And the report is trying to check, if you have only one, you are consistent. There is no chance we have other instances here. And the goal of the report is to say, okay, I've not chosen to regroup based on a bigger location. So you will, the report will show, all the VMs together, which have consistent options activated and used. So installed and used. And same for tuning diagnostic pack, we have 2 VMs, and the story is always the same. You see, 4 cores, 6 cores. In total, you had 30 cores for the 2 clusters which are hosting the VMs. You would get an optimal cluster with 10 cores, which would be, tuning pack. And the report says, oh, that's great. You could save, 22 cores if you were just moving these VMs together in a single cluster. But now, it may happen that I want to understand, I'm managing my data centers or my, so that's where, your data needs to be good on the location side. But if you say, okay, my data centers are at, let's say, level 2. If you run the report again, magically, you will see that the advanced compression, there are 2 clusters now which are recommended, this one and this one. One that will be, an advanced compression cluster, which is, in the, which is in, so the VM had no location here, but it's actually in France, I think. This one is in Illinois, so we will create 2 clusters with a smaller amount of cores. Okay, so the cores just being, in the end, we have 1 VM per cluster. So you see, this is a very, and in the end, IT may decide to change things, but really here, you get the ability to either do that across locations, on the exact location. Let's imagine your data center is the endpoint of your locations. So here you see, again, more clusters recommended, and so on and so on. So just to, run the first report I demoed, and I will not be able to, demo in details each of the reports. Here you see, conveniently you can drill down on the license. That's practical. Conveniently, you have an online help, which is leading you to the very detailed explanation of the report. So, please have a look to the doc, but this is really going into details on each of the columns and the context and why it makes sense to use. For our cloud customer, there is an issue right now on the. I think the link on the report doesn't work. It will work on next release in August. So just go to the inbuilt reports documentation. If you go on the root of the documentation, you will see that each of these reports are documented. Only the first 2 ones I demoed because the other ones are still in beta mode. But you see, each of the reports are actually well documented and could be very helpful if you try to, if you start deep diving into these license consumptions and optimizations. Okay, I think that will be, I don't want to go too much over time. Each of the reports can be run. And there is nothing extraordinary. I guess the screenshots were explaining a little bit what I'm showing now. So I thank you for attending this meeting. What I will do is check the questions that have been asked in the chat. I won't have time to address them today. And I have to find a way of catching the questions, addressing them in the next call. That's what I will do in the end. And I think we are all good for today. I thank you for attending this best practice call. I hope to see you again in the next ones, which will be influenced by your votes. And as soon as we can reconnect, I will be very happy to go through the questions and address them the next time. That's it for this first session. Thank you very much, and bye.